No, no, it's okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. This is our 10th session, and we'll be looking at the 11th name among the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this session, the name that we'll be covering is that of Al-Azeez, the Mighty. And this name is mentioned in the Quran a total of 92 times, very frequently among the frequently mentioned names, most frequently mentioned names. And its meaning is derived from the root Izz, which means power, strength, dominance, etc. Now, relative to Allah, it refers to His ability to take revenge against His enemies and the inability of anyone or anything to defeat Him. He is the Almighty who cannot be forced to do anything, and it is a description, this is a description of His essence and not His acts. Now, when we look at this name in the primary source of revelation, and the primary source of the names of Allah, the beautiful names of Allah, Asma'ullah al-Husna, we see in the Quran that most often the name Al-Aziz is linked with other names. Very few times, only 4 times actually, in fact, is the name used by itself, only Al-Aziz. And what comes from his linking of the names is to bring out further meanings of Al-Aziz, the Mighty, to perfect that understanding, as well as the name which it's connected to. So, the 4 times that the name has been mentioned, 12 have been linked to similar names. So, of the 4 times where it's mentioned by itself, there are 12 other times, this is out of 92, 12 other times when it is linked to other names similar, which speak of or address issues of power and strength and this type of thing. So, for example, it is linked 7 times out of the 12 to Al-Qawi. Al-Qawi, that's the strong, the powerful. Dhu Intiqam, that is the one who will take revenge, 4 times. And Al-Jabbar, the irresistible, who is able to force his will on others. All of these confirm that Allah possesses raw power, that everyone is in awe of in this world, and fear, like volcanoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, tornadoes, etc. This raw power, we see this power of nature, it's awe-inspiring, it's fearful. Storms and hurricanes, etc., etc. However, that irresistible power is tempered most often by wisdom. 48 times Al-Azeez is linked with wisdom. Al-Hakim. Al-Azizul Hakim. And mercy, 13 times linked with mercy. Al-Aziz Ar-Rahim. And 6 times with knowledge. Al-Aziz Al-Alim. And with forgiveness, Al-Aziz Al-Ghafur. So what we are seeing here is that this linking indicates, for example, in the case of mercy, that Allah's might is tempered by His mercy. It's not just might anyhow, anyway, anytime, no. It's applied in a merciful way. Similarly, with Al-Hakim, it is applied in a wise way. It takes into account the circumstances that are there, So, as a whole, the point is that Allah's power and might, but at the same time, that power and might is not unleashed on His creatures and without it being guided in the way which is beneficial to creation. So now if we look at the application, how do we apply this name? Worshipping Allah, as Allah said, فَادْعُوهُ biha. After talking about لِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى, Allah has, or belonging to Him, these most beautiful names. فَادْعُوهُ biha. So call on Him, worship Him through them. The first point, and we had 4 points which were identified, we call them the points of Ibn al-Battal, or Ibn Battal, is we adopt where applicable, we confirm we're unique to Allah, we hope where there's a promise, and we fear where there's a warning. So first and foremost, we adopt where applicable. Those in positions of power should use that power wisely and mercifully to benefit humankind and the world we live in. As Allah does, we should do within our frame of operation, our scope. We are limited. Secondly, we should confirm we're unique and inapplicable. We worship Allah through this name by accepting entirely the ultimate power, that ultimate power and might lies only with Allah. So He alone should be turned to in worship, for help, and in order for our situations to change. So we worship Him through this name, recognizing that ultimate power belongs only to Him, And so that should become manifest in who we turn to for help. With regards to hope, where there is a promise, and there is promise in this name. It's mighty, scary, but at the same time, because it is wise and merciful, the fact that Allah is almighty, capable of making the impossible possible, assures the believers of His support and gives them hope. When they realize that He alone possesses the strength and power capable of overcoming all challenges and obstacles, regardless of how great they may seem, their minds and their hearts finally become calm. Peace, patience, acceptance, and consistent worship is based on this realization, acceptance, that total power, total control is only in Allah's hand. So, in terms of hope, the fact that Allah is almighty, fear. We're moving on to fear. Is there a warning in the name? Of course. The Almighty, the one who dominates everything, nothing can resist Him. He is the all-powerful. That raw power and might of Allah, enabling Him to right all wrongs and take revenge for those wronged, should instill fear in the hearts of those in power who misuse their positions of authority and oppress the masses, if they stop to think just for a moment. So, even on our own level, when we consider each and every one of us has some element of power and dominance within our families, within our communities, within our workplaces, etc., we should fear how we use the power which Allah has given us, in that we will be held accountable for it. And we should think, as we said in the beginning, to use it the way that Allah uses it. Now, in terms of the effects of belief in this divine name, further, belief that Allah is Almighty should give the believer great courage and confidence in Allah, because the divine name means that Allah's commands cannot be repelled. Whatever He wishes will be, even if people do not wish it. And what He does not wish will not be, even if people wish it. Now, the seerah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a classical example, as well as that of the earlier prophets. Classical examples of this, where in the case of the Prophet ﷺ, the Quraysh, were racking up and the power, the pressure on the Prophet ﷺ to try to stop him from spreading his message, from boycotting to plans to kill him, to wage war against him, all the way. But in the end, Mecca fell and the rest of Arabia followed. In the case of Prophet Moses and Pharaoh, we all know the story, Pharaoh trying to stop him at all costs. He got information that this young Jewish boy would be born who would eventually come and take his power, take his authority, take his rule. So he tried to wipe out all babies. But still, not only Allah stopped him, but had him raise in his own home the one who would do exactly what he had heard. So, this is the power. In the case of Prophet Yusuf and his brothers, tried to kill him and all this, but he ended up in a position of high authority in Egypt, and his brothers ended up under him. And the Jews tried to kill Prophet Jesus, but Allah lifted him up. So Allah has the power, has the ability to overcome all obstacles. So understanding, second point, understanding that Allah has might and power over this life and the next means that the believer desires power and influence in this world. If he or she desires power and influence in this world, he or she should seek it from Allah, as we said. Man kana yuridu al-izza falillahi al-izzatu jami'a. Whoever desires might, power, all might and power belongs to Allah. So turn to Him. To seek power and might through obeying sinful enemies of Allah and disbelievers is to seek it from those who really do not have the power to give. It might seem like they have the power, and we try to bow down to them, submit ourselves to them, do whatever they tell us to try to get a piece of that power, but this is not the way to go. It's a big mistake. As Allah said in Surah An-Nisa, do those who take the disbelievers as allies instead of the believers seek strength from them? Indeed, all strength belongs to Allah. All izzah, all power belongs to Allah. The third point of the effects of this name, belief in this divine name should also lead the believer to have and to develop the high moral characteristic of afu. Afu being letting people go, forgiving, forgetting when one is in a position to take one's right or to take revenge. You know, this is a high moral characteristic. And as Allah's might is displayed by His not taking people to account immediately, and by His excusing others, the believer is elevated in majesty and grandeur when he or she excuses Allah's creatures. The Prophet ﷺ was reported by Abu Huraira as saying, charity does not decrease wealth, and Allah only increases a servant's might when he increases his excusing of people. وَمَا زَادَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ إِلَّا عِزَّةً. So when Allah increases one's characteristic or nature of forgiveness, one becomes more forgiving, more willing to let things go, etc. He increases it proportionately in power and might. That individual's power and might becomes greater. It may not be visible. That person may be a beggar on the street, or a sick person in a hospital. They may seem to have no power, etc. But Allah has given them power, which makes them exceptional and makes them capable of handling whatever challenges and trials they're faced with, and allows them to worship Allah with a peaceful heart. And mashallah, the power is known to Allah and may be known to the few who really know them, but to the rest of the world they appear to be nothing. So it doesn't have to mean that getting the power means you now become the ruler, you're the head over everything else, etc. No, that's not necessarily the consequence. So we worship Allah, we can make dua, Ya Azeez, Ya Ghaffar. We can use Ya Azeez, Ya Hakim, combine these together. You know, help me in these situations, help me out of it. You are the only one capable of changing this situation because you are Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim, etc. So the worship takes place through calling on Him by that name and addressing your needs to Him. Okay, inshallah, that covers the 11th name. And if there are some questions here that we can look at, we'll try to do it. Otherwise, inshallah, I'm saying welcome to everybody. Somebody's asking, this is about Ramadan. Asking about re-swallowing one's vomit, and this is to be avoided. Rulings on fasting. You know, you can go to my website, Facebook page, sorry, and there go to where it says videos, and you go into the videos and you'll find a whole series on the soul of fasting, the soul of Ramadan, and all those issues are discussed there at length. Salams to Brother Muhammad Hashim from Nigeria. Barakallahu Fiqh. And to Riaz Dar from Kashmir. And to Inojo. To Diamond Aman from the Philippines. But a question which has been repeated time and time again, does vomiting break fast? No, just the act of vomiting does not break the fast. Okay, to Dandy Jurovsky, Ramadan Kareem, salams, that was from Indonesia. Sani Fagi from Nigeria, I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. Myrel Ponce from Philippines, and Fauseni Kaburi from Ivory Coast. MashaAllah. Barakallahu fikum. Anyway, I didn't see any questions on the topic, but inshallah, hopefully you have benefited from this reflection on how we can worship Allah through His beautiful names. Al-Asma'ul Husna. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.